Hey crafty crew, Dollar Tree has started stocking the shelves for spring and Easter. I don't know about you, but all this cold weather is giving me spring fever. Today's video is all about spring and Easter crafts. I hope you enjoy. If you would like to become part of the crafty crew, all you have to do is click that subscribe button right below this video. For our first project, we're using one of the small wooden birdhouses from Dollar Tree, as well as this house shape with the box in the front. I'm going to be taking some burnt umber acrylic paint and going over the entire roof, underneath that roof line, the little perch on the front, as well as the base. Don't worry, we're going to lighten it up a bit. This is just our base coat because we're going to be doing a crackle finish on this. On the other piece, again, I'm going to do the roof line underneath the roof line in the front and the back, and then the scallops on the top of the box. Once your brown paint dries, you'll need 2 clean paint brushes, a paper plate, some regular Elmer's school glue, and some white acrylic paint. Apply a generous amount of the school glue over top of all of the brown painted portions. Then take one of your brushes to spread that out evenly. Depending on how thick you want the cracks to be on your crackle finish will depend on how much glue you apply. So the more glue you add, the deeper the cracks will be. While that glue is still wet, take the other paintbrush and apply a nice generous amount of your white acrylic paint. Once you have that area covered with your white acrylic paint, you'll then want to take either a heat tool, or in my case, I'm using a hair dryer. I have it set on the highest setting, and then slowly go over it, and as it dries, it's going to form the most beautiful crackle finish. I suggest doing this sections at a time. So I'm just going to do the roof here, then I'll go underneath the roof, applying it in the same way. Then I'll work my way down until I get to the bottom. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other wooden piece using the same technique. This is a beautiful glass candlestick holder from Dollar Tree. Now the easiest way to do this would be to take it outside and spray paint it brown. However, it's super cold outside, so I am taking a truffle colored chalk paint because chalk paint does adhere to glass very well. The key to this is to apply thin layers. I'm only going to apply one thin layer and allow it to thoroughly dry. And because I want that undertone to be the same color as our birdhouses, I can then take that acrylic paint in the color burnt umber to go over top of the chalk paint because the acrylic paint will adhere to the chalk paint. Again, I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to do the same technique that we did with the birdhouses by applying a generous amount of glue, spreading that around with our paintbrush, then applying our white acrylic paint. It is much easier if you just set this down and do it and then dry it, but I wanted to hold this up so you guys could see the technique. Now, once it has dried, if you have some areas that are a shade darker than you really want them to be, like in this area, take a separate dry paintbrush, dip it into just a little bit of that acrylic paint and wipe most of it off, and then gently go over those areas, avoiding the cracks so that you'll still be able to see those. You could always paint the birdhouses the color of your choice. I want to wrap mine in some scrapbook paper. I found this book at Hobby Lobby. It's regularly $11.99. I got it for 40% off. So it has 60 sheets in it, and with the 40% off, that's about 12 cents a sheet. I picked out 2 different colors so that I would be able to wrap each individual birdhouse with a different piece of scrapbook paper. I traced out the backing and cut that down, and as you can see, I did this before I did the crackle finish, but it doesn't make a difference if you trace and cut these out before or after you do that crackle finish. I did this and then pushed it in the front, and so I would know exactly where to cut the sides and trim those down because I want to make sure mine fits inside of the box in the front. Then I can trace and cut out the back, and for the front pieces of the box, I want the pattern to go continuously all the way around. So I set the side piece up on one corner of the scrapbook paper and made a mark at the top and on the left-hand side, rolled that over, made another mark, rolled it over again, and made another mark. And then I measured the height of the box, made it a little bit taller than that, drew a line across the top, and then I could cut that long piece out. I'm going to hold it up against the box, fold it around to make sure my lines line up, and then I'll fold that over and I can cut that down. Now you could attach this as one whole piece, but I decided to cut mine in 3 sections and I'll attach those separately. I'll use that same method with the birdhouse and the other scrapbook paper, making sure that I draw and cut out 4 sections, one for the front, the back, and each side. Of course, your tracing will be a little bit larger, so you can just push that down and trim it to make sure that it fits. I did leave a little bit extra on the sides, which once we attach that, we can sand those down. For the front, I kind of made a mark with my pencil where the hole is for the birdhouse and then where the perch is. I used a hole punch to create the hole for the perch, and then once I set that on top of the birdhouse, I just used my pencil to kind of poke around to form the circle where the birdhouse is. Then I could take my finger and push it through to push the paper to the back. Then I can pull this off and trim any of that excess paper off. I'm going to cut 2 small sections out for each of the sides, trim those down, and make sure they're going to fit before we attach them. If you decide to do the crackle finish on the roof and the base, make sure you do that before you add your scrapbook paper on. I'll be doing 2 sections at a time, attaching the scrapbook paper using Mod Podge. So I'll apply that to the front of the birdhouse, add my piece of scrapbook paper, and press all the edges down. Then I can apply the Mod Podge to the back of the birdhouse and add my scrapbook paper. And then I'll set it to the side and let that Mod Podge set up before we remove any of the excess paper on the edges. I'm going to do the same thing with the other piece, applying the Mod Podge and the paper to the front of this piece as well as the 2 sides on the outside of the box. After allowing the Mod Podge to dry, I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper, or here I'm using my finger sander. I have this listed in my Amazon store, and the link to that is in my description box below if you are interested. I'm going in one direction to remove any of that excess paper, and this will get all of those fine details and give you a nice clean line. Once I remove all of that debris, I can then go back and add the scrapbook paper to the other sections, and then once we let that dry, we can go back over those and sand them down using the same method. You just want to be very careful when you are sanding the front corners, because if you sand it too hard, they will rip the paper in the front, which still looks great because this is a distressed scrapbook paper, so it blended in quite nicely. I distressed the rooftop a little bit more. For this one, I'm going to decorate it with some green moss and pieces of a lavender pick from Walmart. I'm just going to set those off to one side. For the small birdhouse, I'm going to attach this to the top of the candlestick using some E6000 and hot glue. And for some extra cuteness, I decided to use one of these paper flowers. You can find these at Hobby Lobby when they have their 40% off sale. I thought this added just an elegant touch to the birdhouse. We'll be using another glass candlestick from Dollar Tree and some Waverly chalk paint in the color Celery. I'm going to give this 2 thin coats, allowing it to dry in between coats. Once that has dried, I'm going to soften it up a little bit by taking some white acrylic paint and dry brushing that around all of the edges, and then just a little bit around the candlestick itself. This is going to give it a little bit more dimension and character. We're also going to be using 2 of Dollar Tree's large Easter eggs. These come in the plus section. I bought the one on the right last year and the one on the left this year. So the one from last year is slightly smaller, but they're each $3 a piece. This is an excellent deal. They sell something very similar at Kirkland's for a set of 3 for $34.99, and they are a lot smaller than the ones you find at Dollar Tree. They also carry the ivory carved eggs in a set of 2 for $54.99. So this is an excellent deal for $3 a piece at Dollar Tree. I'm going to attach the green egg on top of our candlestick. That's why I chose the color Celery, using some E6000 and hot glue. Now you have a set of beautiful Easter egg decor for around $7.25. For this project, you'll need a picture frame. This one came from Dollar Tree. The inside measurements of the frame are 10.5 inches by 7 inches. We're going to remove everything from the frame and set that to the side. We're also going to be using this Farm Life calendar from Dollar Tree. This is the 2024 calendar, and I want to use the cow on the front. This is thicker than the actual calendar pages. We're going to set our glass from our picture frame on top, line it up so that we can have the design exactly where we want it, and then I'm going to bend over the bottom and top portions so I'll know exactly where to cut those off at. Then we're going to attach our calendar piece to the glass itself from the picture frame using some Mod Podge. Now I do recommend using a thin coat. I applied way too much Mod Podge on here, so I do have to go back, take some of that off, and wipe it off my brush with a paper towel. Then we'll apply our calendar page to the top of our glass. I do also recommend that you allow that to dry. I went ahead and put mine back in the frame while the Mod Podge was still wet. So in the next steps you will see a few bubbles, but they will work out as they dry. Now we're going to embellish it using some paper flowers. These came from Hobby Lobby. You can always catch these when they're 40% off. They are absolutely gorgeous. You could also use some artificial flowers from Dollar Tree. I just placed 5 at the top, and I'm going to hot glue each one of those down. And I decided to add 3 more underneath that, and look how this beautiful picture comes to life with these gorgeous flowers. You could do this in so many different colors. I just chose pink. In the Crafter Square section of Dollar Tree, I found this wood decor piece that I thought we could make something cute for Easter. We're also going to be using one of their wooden boxes. This measures 3 inches square. I'm going to paint each of these pieces with 1 coat of white acrylic paint on all sides. During the Easter season, Dollar Tree carries these wooden eggs as well as some wooden bunnies. I found the easiest way to paint these is to place some painter's tape sticky side up and then tape each of those ends down. That way you can paint these individually without them sliding or moving around. We're also using that wooden bunny. We're going to remove the tail. We'll glue that back on later. Choose the colors that you would like to paint your eggs and your bunny. I have white, apple orchard, cameo pink, daybreak, surfboard, and a light lavender. To create 7 different colors, I will be mixing some white with some of the paints just to give it a variation of that shade. Once all of the paint has dried, we can add these eggs to the center of each one of these branches using some hot glue. To remove all of the glue strands, I'm going to use my hairdryer on the high setting, and we're also going to cut down a piece of Dollar Tree floral foam to fit inside of our wooden box. I'm going to glue that in the bottom of the box using some hot glue. We're going to reattach the tail to the bunny, and then we can attach the bunny to the wooden box. I put mine flush to the bottom. Now we can add in our tree. Once you push that in, you'll want to add some hot glue around that floral foam to keep it from moving around. Make sure your glue gun is on the low setting so it doesn't melt that floral foam. Now you could add in some green moss or Spanish moss or raffia. I'm going to use a piece of hula skirt from Dollar Tree and tuck that on top of the floral foam and trim it down. For this project, we're using a grapevine bunny wreath form. You can find this at Dollar Tree in their plus section for $5, which I think is an amazing deal. This measures about 25 inches tall. It has a nice hanger on it, and it has the chicken wire in the middle. To decorate mine, I'll be using some white floral bundles from Hobby Lobby. They're just small white flowers. You can get these when they have their 40% off sale, but Dollar Tree also carries white flowers that I think would be perfect for this project. Since mine has 4 stems on the bundle, I'm going to cut each of the stems off of it, and you will need a total of 3 bundles for this. Once I have all of those cut, I'm going to shape each of the stems to the form of the bunny wreath, and I want my flowers to go in an upward direction. I'm going to place the bottom piece underneath one of the wire pieces on the form, but I'm not going to attach that yet. I'm going to start by attaching the top piece to the wreath form using some floral wire. Twist that around real tight around the stem. Cut your excess floral wire off, and then I like to twist mine around and tuck it to make sure it's not going to scratch anything. Before you add your floral wire to the bottom, you can add your next piece so that you'll be able to attach the top of that piece to the bottom of the first piece, and you'll use less floral wire. Then I'm going to attach the other 2 pieces on the other side, again starting at the bottom and letting the flowers flow upwards. For the head of the bunny, I'll do the exact same thing by having 2 stems go from the middle section upwards to the top, and then on the opposite side do the same thing. I am leaving a small space between the 2 round wreath forms because I will be adding a bow to that later on. For the ears, you'll need 2 stems for each of the ears, and again, we're going to have those flowers flowing upwards. I'm using some white ribbon. This came from Walmart. I'm going to cut down about 2 foot, use a piece of twine, leave enough for a tail and create a loop on that side and fold it over, and then pinch it together in the center, tie that with the twine, double knot that on the back, and then I'll cut that excess twine off. I'm also going to be using some of Dollar Tree's Spring Berry Garland. It has a beautiful white and green, which I thought would match perfectly with this wreath. I'm going to cut a long piece off, twist that around the center of the bow a couple of times. Then I can take each strand and wrap this around the grapevine wreath form, twist that a couple of times in the back. Then I'll bring each end back forward to the front of the bow and around that wreath form. I'm going to twist that a couple of times in the center to have some of those berries in the middle of that bow. Then I can dovetail each of the tails. I'm going to trim the length of the berry garland down to be the same on each side, and then using the end of a paintbrush, twirl that around the paintbrush to give it a nice curl on each side of the bow. This wreath turned out absolutely gorgeous, and I have less than $15 invested in this. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found tons of inspiration, and if you have a favorite, let me know in the comment section down below. I always love to know which one is your favorite. And if you haven't subscribed already, I would love for you to click that subscribe button right below this video. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.